Some More Outdoor, Episode 3.
Welcome to Some More Outdoor, where we speak with authors, entrepreneurs, and business owners about how the outdoors has affected their life and their projects. This show is to remind you of the healing properties of the outdoors. So, are you ready to learn what the nature effect can do for your life? Well, here's your host, Brett Trout.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Some More Outdoor. I'm your host, Brett Trout, and this is the podcast dedicated to reminding you to get out and experience the nature effect. My goal is to help you reestablish a connection with nature so you can live with childlike wonder again. So I'm so excited to be here today. I have Shawn Stratton on the line with me today to interview him about his life around the outdoors and his business. Shawn Stratton is an international team building and leadership consultant, best-selling author, Ironman expedition guide, and podcast host. Shawn has a bachelor's degree in recreation and is driven by a love for experiential education, adventure, and leadership. He devoted 15 years to leading teams on wilderness expeditions into some of the world's harshest environments. In 2013, Shawn released his first book, Teams on the Edge, Stories and Lessons from the Wilderness Expeditions. Well, hello, Shawn. Thanks for being here today. Appreciate you coming on the show.
Well, thanks for having me, Brad. It's great to be here.
You're welcome. So I'm just going to give people a little overview of you. Why don't you go ahead and dive deeper into who you are and what you do?
That was a good summary you did there. I guess I spent 15 years, I would call myself as a freelance outdoor educator, working in outdoor education, utilizing the wilderness as a classroom. We call it the classroom without walls, and utilizing the wilderness to promote personal growth and development while teaching outdoor skills and leadership. For the majority of that time, I worked for one main organization, NOLS, the National Outdoor Leadership School. They're a large nonprofit based in Wyoming, but have branches around the world. And for 15 years, I was paid to play and managed to get paid to travel the world, leading expeditions with folks in the mountains and on the ocean, sea kayaking, backpacking, mountaineering, whitewater canoeing, and we were kind of living the dream. I kind of lived out of my truck and drove to Alaska 3 times, I think, twice from Mexico, and was loving life and really enjoyed that time. Eventually, I started to get burnt out of the full-time field work and looked forward to my next chapter in my life. And as I gradually left the field work, I started my own kind of corporate training, team building business, and a speaking business as well. And so that's developed over the last 6 years now. And I recently finished a master's in leadership. And so now, most of my day job is doing corporate training, whether it's 50% of my work is keynote speaking, conferences and professional development days on team building themes, kind of sharing my lessons that I've learned from the expeditions and bringing them into the office environment. And the other 50% is doing team building retreats and what I call a lot of team building facilitation or team intervention for teams that are struggling. I tell folks I help teams reach their full potential. And so that's what kind of keeps me busiest now. I've just launched a side project as well because that wasn't keeping me busy enough. And I've just started my own podcast, which is called Home Office Dad. And it's part of the Home Office Dad Club I've recently created. So
awesome. That's
keeping me busy in the professional world. Yep, for sure.
Wow. Busy man, busy life. Just, it's so nice to hear someone who's very similar and a lot like me in so many ways. And you mentioned something when you were doing the outdoor education and teaching people about, the benefits basically of the outdoors and how it can have a huge impact on your emotional well-being. And that's what I like to talk about, the emotional, physical, spiritual well-being. And when I started getting into this idea, I knew what it was doing for me, but I didn't know, I guess I was afraid of the competition, so I wasn't doing a whole lot of research in the beginning about other people talking about how the outdoors can have an impact in our lives. But once I started learning and understanding people like yourself and what you did out there and how you taught people and different books that are out there on the subject, it kind of excited me to be able to bring this, and just because it's unique. And a lot of people aren't talking about the outdoors. And I would imagine that during especially after, seeing your book, is that you incorporate the outdoors into your leadership message. Is that correct?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Most of my storytelling that, comes from my expedition days, for sure. I interweave a few of my more recent stories in the last couple of years. But yeah, people love to be inspired by the dramatic photography and some video I have, and like to see and hear stories from around the world and kind of more exotic locations. But the real challenge for me and the real goal for me is to really connect the lessons I've learned and then the message I'm sharing with, how does this relate at home and in the office to the audience.
So let's go ahead and dive right into the questions. When I was researching and trying to figure out what to talk to people about, a lot of people like quotes. And if you go on Pinterest, there's like tons and tons of different quotes and images. And people love imagery and they love quotes. When I started thinking about that, I'd start looking around my house and I see pictures of the outdoors, quotes that I love about the outdoors. I'm thinking, why do we love that? Why do we love pictures so much? Is it something that it brings us home or different things like that? So I wanted to kind of set up the podcast with a quote or a mantra that you have regarding the outdoors. Do you have a favorite outdoor quote that kind of relates to the outdoors in your life?
I have a couple. One said, it wouldn't be an adventure if you knew what the ending was. And I really like that because it kind of personifies my life a little bit, but personifies everybody's life. And people sometimes shy away from adventure, but I think there's adventure in all our lives. And exciting, it's what makes it exciting because you don't know what the ending is. And I think when I take on roles or my life turns, mundane and every day turns into the same, and I know what the ending and the day is going to look like, I start to lose a bit of interest and inspiration. So I try to incorporate adventure into just about everything I do. That, and then the other one that goes along with that is adventure travel is only glamorous in retrospect.
Yeah.
So it's great, and people love to see my photos, but they don't want to stand there and be that cold on the side of the mountain where I was, or be in those 9 days of rain that we had. And so it is challenging, but it definitely is a little more glamorous in retrospect than it is at the time.
Well, it's like we have a desire for that adventure, but yes, like you say, it's like, I would love to be able to do something like that. Just recently, I think it was last year, they released the Emir Project. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but a group of people went and hiked the John Muir Trail, and they've been traveling around the country, releasing stuff, and the video is just so awesome and just so inspirational to be able to get out there and go hiking. But in reality, how many people would actually be able to do what they did,
right?
And enjoy it like they did, because it's not always easy getting out there. But definitely, thanks for sharing that quote. So now, part of my introduction, my goal is to help people reestablish their connection to nature so that they can live with childlike wonder again. I think as adults, we forget about the dreams and the passions that we have when we're kids. And to me, when I get out in nature and I'm hiking by myself on a trail or with friends or whatever, it's just there's something inside of me that just makes me feel like a kid again. And for those people that are listening to the show that don't get out as much as they want to, I wanted to bring to them a message from different people about a childhood memory they had. So if you can just dive into a story from your childhood about your experience in the outdoors, and take us to that time in your life and tell us that story.
Yeah, wow, there's so many. It's interesting, living the life that I have. A lot of people say to me, wow, your family must have been such good campers and you must have went around camping everywhere with the family. And truth be told, my family, or especially my father, hates camping. And we did very little as a family, but I grew up in the Scouts and doing the scouting movement in Canada. And that was kind of my outlet. And so that, that question brings back a lot of vivid memories from a lot of great scout camps and expeditions that we did in Scouts. And I think it's interesting because as much as I love nature and love being out in nature and in the wilderness, a big part of my time in the wilderness is the people that are with me. And when I think back of the times, it just, I get faces that come into my mind. Mm-hmm. Sure, I've got smells and sounds as well, but the faces of the people I'm with. And I've done a fair bit of independent travel, but for me, a lot of times it's the people I get to share those moments with. Whether it's scrambling up climbing a mountain, and I don't know what kind of footwear we had on, and the blisters that we managed to get from them. Or I remember one backpacking trip, probably my first real backpacking trip. It was just a weekend, but I had a cheap backpack, and just the shoulder straps were cutting into my shoulder. And I came home and I was sore for days, but I loved it. I had the greatest time.
Yeah.
I think I vowed then, or at least my mother vowed then, that I'd never have a backpack that cut into my shoulders like that. But it's amazing. I came bounced back from that experience, because I think a lot of people would be deterred from doing it again. But I think I just couldn't get enough of it.
That's such a great story. So thanks for sharing that with me. Now, I want to dive into another outdoor experience. So a time, my wife and I, for example, we went up to and stayed in Revelstoke for our anniversary, or for our honeymoon.
Oh, nice. I'll be driving through Revelstoke this weekend.
And it was amazing up there. It was absolutely beautiful country. And so I have different things like that I remember in my life of places. But tell me a time when you visited, and share with our listeners a time when you visited the most beautiful place that you had ever been to. And really take us to that time and tell us that story.
Wow, the most beautiful place. There's been so many most beautiful places. Yeah. I don't know. One place that I kind of keep coming back to when I get this kind of question is Prince William Sound in Alaska. And sea kayaking there. And I've done a number of expeditions there, but maybe one of my first trips there, I was with a group of teenagers and bringing them, it was a 5 or 6 day sea kayaking trip, and just the paddling around the tidal water glaciers in Prince William Sound in Alaska, south of Anchorage. And it's just enormous, these massive, massive glaciers coming down into the ocean, touching the ocean, and house-sized boulders of ice calving off from these glaciers, and you're sitting there, a little dot in a kayak, and it's one of those surreal moments I'll never forget, that it's like, am I really here? Are we really doing this? Am I having this conversation with you, or is someone going to pull up the canvas screen and we're going to be in a studio?
Yeah.
I think the vivid memories I get are moments that make you just feel so small in nature, and that was definitely a moment, and hopefully I'll get back there again someday with my own kids.
Yeah. It's funny, that story that you tell me, because we see pictures of the rocks falling. People capture the pictures of or not the rocks, but the glaciers falling off, and how tall they are. Now, when you're out there, just kind of a personal question, when you're out there, is it constantly ice falling off the glaciers?
No, it's not. It's not constant, but you can definitely hear it and see it. And you don't want to be. When we're paddling, we don't really get any closer than probably a kilometer. Definitely not, any closer than half a kilometer away from the glacier, because when it calves off, these massive boulders of ice coming off, they obviously create a bit of a tidal wave. Yeah. And there's stories of tourists that have been right underneath them, been killed from these ice chunks falling off and hitting them. So you're a little further away, and you just kind of paddle up close to them and just float there and watch them, and you hope you can kind of find one falling off. A couple places I've been, we've camped kind of maybe a couple kilometers away, but in the same bay at this glacier's coming down, and so all night long you'll kind of hear it kind of groaning and big splashes every now and then, and then you'll hear the tide, not the tide, but the ocean kind of lap up on the shore 2 or 3 minutes later after the waves have caught up. But yeah, it's pretty magical.
The next question I want to jump into is what I call the nature effect. It's something that I just kind of coined myself, and it's really the effect and the impact that nature has on our lives, on our soul. How does the nature effect have an impact in your business and your life today?
Oh, it's everything for me. Without being outdoors on a regular basis, I don't know, I think I would go nuts. And I'm a big runner, biker, swimmer, triathlete as well. And so, if I might not be able to get to the mountains or get out for a full day hike and that, but every day I'm either out running somewhere or biking or, trying to do something outdoors. I think for me, it's exhilarating. It's obviously an avenue for my physical fitness, and it's just something that keeps me grounded, I think, and at peace.
That's great to hear. Yeah, and one of the gentlemen I was talking to today is a huge stress reliever.
Yeah, for sure.
And to help you when you're talking about, or when you're trying to come up with different things for your business, different ideas or different suggestions or just anything around business ideas. He go outside just to kind of break away from what I like to call the electrical paradise and just kind of free your mind and just get away to think without all the distractions and stuff. So,
yeah, I would say some of my best, if not all my best business ideas have come probably while running.
Awesome. So you have a ton of ideas from outside, which I want people to understand that that's where a lot of different ideas do come from. And my reason for interviewing entrepreneurs is because a lot of people, when they get stuck in their business or they get stuck on, if they're starting a blog, and same with me too, is if you're not spending enough time outdoors, you're not getting the inspiration or the ideas flowing to you as much. So with that, you said you have a lot of ideas. Could you share with us one of the ideas that you did have that came to you from your time outdoors?
Yeah, I would say probably that my podcast and my whole title of my podcast and focus, I think, came from a run this summer. The podcast, is called Home Office Dads. And I knew I wanted to do a podcast for a while, and I've been bouncing around different ideas. And on some run one day, it just kind of popped in my head and it just jived with me. And I was like, wow, that's it. That's what I want. Yeah. And, for me at the time, being a home office dad, which I am now, a dad working from home, and, it can be kind of a lonely existence sometimes. And I was just kind of craving a community and didn't really find it out there. And I guess on my run that day, as I did some research beforehand, I went out my run, wasn't planning on thinking about this, was just out running. And then the idea was like, let's start a podcast called Home Office Dad. And so 3 months later, I've just launched it actually this week. And so, it's great to see that come through.
Oh, awesome. Isn't it amazing what inspires us outdoors?
For sure.
One of the things, I've been making soap for quite some time now. I've been playing around with different names, but, it was one of those things I needed to have the perfect name. And, one of my times outdoors is like, I'm trying to think, how can I interject me into my soap business? Who am I in the soap? I said, well, I love the mountains. And the men love the used to, like, friends and family that would buy my soap. They love the abrasiveness of the oatmeal that I put in my soap. I was like, well, why don't I call it Mountain Man Soap? So I checked on GoDaddy. So it's fun just to see your podcast come about because you're a home office dad. And it's something simple like that, but it's being outdoors that inspires us to be more creative, and really getting back to like we were when we were kids and being outdoors and just the ideas of who we wanted to be and what we wanted to do, because we could do anything. We could be we could imagine ourselves to be anyone that we wanted to back then. So definitely thanks for sharing that with me. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to dive into some little short answer, I guess, questions that I have for you. And you talked about a few, but what do you do when you get outdoors?
Yeah, well, right now I have a 1 and a 3-year-old kids, so I really try to incorporate them a lot. In the past couple of years, in the stuff I'm doing. Obviously, my adventures have changed since the family's come along, and but I'm amazed. I had no idea before I had kids the amount of stuff you can do and the amount of equipment that'll help you get out there with kids. And it's definitely no excuse not to be out there. And I recently just moved to Calgary, Alberta this summer, which is just an hour's drive from the Rocky Mountains out here in Alberta. And it's great. We get out there as much as possible with the kids hiking. We haven't done any paddling with them yet, but I think we will be soon. I'm definitely an avid paddler, but definitely with the backpacks out there these days, the quality backpacks, you can do some pretty challenging hikes and some long hikes with them if they're getting their sleep and they're fed. They can do just about anything. So I really try to get outside with the kids a lot, and then every day I'm jogging with them. I actually jog them to daycare in the jogger, or I bike them. So it's really important for me to get them outdoors as much as possible as well. So these days, most of it comes from hiking and biking and running, and hopefully we'll get my 3-year-old on some skis this winter. Oh,
nice. Yeah, well, I appreciate you training your kids, I guess you would say, or teaching your kids about the importance of the outdoors as well, because I don't think it happens enough.
No, and for me, a lot of it's about role modeling too, right?
Right, definitely. Okay, so next question. When you don't spend time outdoors, what negative effects do you see in your life and your business?
Oh, I don't know. I wouldn't say depression, but it's probably pretty close to it. I think the combination of needing, physical release and physical activity, and then just the sensory nature of needing the outdoors, that combination, which is something I crave every day. And if I go several days without it, I just, start to feel not bad about myself, but I just start to feel crappy and not very good. And I think it slows everything down for me, whether it's my ideas or my clear thinking or my parenting or my business productivity. I feel much more energized and excited and ready to go once I've kind of had my fill of the outdoors.
Yeah, most definitely. So how do you make sure that it's one of the most important things that you do in your life? Oh, for me, it's such a way of life that it's, some of it is scheduling it in terms of the bigger stuff. A lot of times, especially with young kids, your days just run together and it's like, whoa, we haven't done anything outdoors with the kids in a month or two. But you just need to schedule it. So, once a month, we'll try to plan something bigger, maybe a couple days trip or something, or camping, or, it's just making it a part of your everyday and having that, having the equipment to make it every day. And it doesn't have to cost a lot of money, but, just making it a priority, I think is a big thing for me. Health and fitness is a huge priority in my life. And, I think it boils down to your top priority because, I'm not going to be any good for my family. I'm not going to be any good for my kids, my business, anything if I don't take care of my own health. And for me, taking care of health means getting outdoors. Oh, absolutely. Well, and I like what you said about making it a priority and at least getting out, once a month to where you schedule either a day or a 2-day outing. And I'm a huge advocate of what I like to call I stole it from the weekly green hour by the National Wildlife Federation, but a weekly green hour, just for people that are just constantly so busy, maybe they work 6 days a week, at least spending 1 day a week where they get out for about an hour just to kind of, I don't think it's enough, but it's a start for people to start making it as a priority in their life.
Yeah, you got to start with small steps. I can only imagine if I'd only spent an hour a week outside, but for those folks that struggle with it, you've got to start with small steps for sure.
Yep. Yeah. Can you share with us one of your favorite spots that you like to go to and what that spot means to you?
Sure. Just on that last point, I think it's important too that people do things that they enjoy, not what they see in magazines or TV that they think they should be doing. Mm-hmm. I think too often people get caught up in seeing other people jogging with their kids and be like, oh, we got to get a jogger, we got to go jogging. But in actual fact, they hate jogging.
Right.
But they think they need to do it. And it's like, no, if you just put your kid on a backpack and walk to the grocery store, that's a lot, enough. Or if you hate hiking, but you love to canoe, well, there's a lot of things you can do to, get out and be canoeing. And so, it's just important that you do what you really enjoy, not what you think you should be doing or what you think you'll enjoy.
And to start somewhere and to find out what you might enjoy. Maybe you're one of those people who have never really had a role model to help you experience different things that you might enjoy outdoors. And right. I like to suggest to people that just get out and start walking instead of taking your phone with you on the walk through your neighborhood, just kind of, and not worrying about the exercise of it, but just getting out there and just kind of looking at the different surroundings, looking at your neighborhood from new eyes. And like I said earlier, like from a child's perspective, looking at the plants around, looking at things, all those things that when you leave your home, that you're driving away from driving to work or coming home, you're not paying attention to the world that's around you.
Right.
And that's really important. In my book is just, to start somewhere, go for a walk, and just start looking at the world from a different perspective, which I like to say.
Yeah. And another thing, like I'm sure there's a lot of outdoor advocates that listen to the show and it's, it's important to give back and help people that don't even know where to start. And I know they have an interesting initiative in Canada, the Parks Canada, people that run our national parks, they have these camp out days, I think at big football stadiums in the summertime to teach immigrants, people that are new to the country, how to camp. And I love the idea because, myself and you, we grew up in this area, and we grew up doing this stuff, and we're very fortunate of that. But a lot of immigrants from a lot of places all over the world that are coming into the United States and Canada and other developed countries, they don't even know what camping is, let alone, doing it as a recreation and doing it for joy. And so, there's ways for people to get involved and take other people out with you. And that's what we try to do as well. We try to include other families that maybe didn't have the skills or the knowledge to get out and do it, or, go volunteer with a new, in Canada, they have like the new Canadian societies and stuff like that. But there's a lot of people out there that don't know where to start. And for people that are familiar with it, it's great always to be able to give back and help out, and it can be very, very basic.
Right. Well, and I just recently came across, I don't know how, in all my research that I've been doing is, I think it's Meetupcom, and seeing different groups on there that you can become a part of. And I was just kind of browsing on there looking at, for different groups. And one of them was a hiking group can join, or just different walking groups. So you're not alone on this outdoor adventure, on your adventure that you're about to embark on.
For sure.
And different things like that. So, well, thanks so much for sharing with that. I love that. They call it camp out days, you say?
Yeah.
Camp out
when
days.
They actually, teach people how to camp in a football stadium.
Oh, that's
it's
cool.
Like, this is how you set up a tent. This is how you light a stove.
That's so great. I'm going to have to do some more research on that and look into that, because I love that idea.
That last question, maybe you can repeat that for me.
Oh, absolutely. Just kind of share us one of your favorite places that you like to go just to get away and think, and what that place means to you.
Yeah, I would say where I was living before here, I was in Newfoundland, St. John's, Newfoundland, which is my hometown out in eastern Canada. And we were right on the ocean, and not too far from my home in the city was Middle Cove Beach. And it's a nice rocky beach right on the Atlantic Ocean, in the North Atlantic Ocean. Basically, when you look out, the next piece of land is Ireland. And it's just a nice magical place that was close to my home, but totally quiet and serene. And, with the pebbled rocks, it's a very loud beach. And I really enjoyed going there and just, taking in the scenery and clearing my head. And I would often, when my oldest child was about 1, I would get her in the bike and the trailer, and we'd ride out there, and she'd just crawl around and play on the rocks. And, Middle Cove is a special place for me.
Middle Cove, Newfoundland?
Yeah, awesome. Middle Cove Beach, Newfoundland.
Okay. And what's the best advice that you have for someone who wants to get outdoors more, but they struggle with the limited amount of time they have because their job or something is keeping them from being able to spend that much time outside, or even to get outside?
Yeah, I think some of it is a priority. Sometimes for things like that, you need to spend money, and the money holds you accountable. So whether it's signing up for a course, through REI or MEC, one of these outdoor stores, or there's lots of different outdoor courses, that might be a great way to start. And you've put some money up for it, so you'll do it now. Mm-hmm. Or buying that piece of equipment that you're like, gee, I've bought it now. I got to get out there. Or talking to a friend, and if you get other people involved, then you feel more accountable. People do that running all the time. There's so many people that would never run by themselves, but if they know there's a group waiting for them, they're going to get out there.
Right.
So I think, those kind of things either, depends on what motivates you, but maybe put the money up, take a course, or find some friends to do it to hold you accountable.
Okay. Now, you talked earlier about part of your career for 15 years was being outdoor education. And where would people find information about that in their community?
In their community, Meetup is a good place. It seems like a lot of communities will have meetups for like local hikes and that. A lot of outdoor recreation departments, so like the municipal recreation department, they may have some courses or some groups that'll be doing things like that. Internationally, there's lots of different companies that are doing kind of adventure travel, and then there's there's kind of a difference between outdoor education and guiding. And guiding, happens when someone takes you out and, gives you experience, but doesn't necessarily spend the time teaching. They may be cooking your food and setting up your tents and doing everything for you, and they give you the experience. But then the outdoor education side of it is when they take you out and they're actually teaching you. And so that was kind of more our focus was, I'm not going to cook your food, but I'll teach you how to do it.
Right.
And, I'm not going to set up your tent, but I'll teach you how to do it. And so after, you want to know what skills you should be leaving that course with.
Awesome. Well, thanks for sharing that with me. And I really appreciate our time together. So, Wyatt, can you share some final words of encouragement to the S'more Outdoor listeners and how they can connect with you?
Sure. Yeah. Just taking advantage of it. You know, they say there's no bad weather, only bad gear. So don't let the weather get you down. It's all part of it. You know, you don't have to spend a fortune to get started in it. And, you know, find some friends that are doing it or sign up for a course and get skills. I think it is important that you do have some basic skills, especially first aid. And I guess that would be my parting advice. If you plan to spend any time in the outdoors, and everybody in general should have first aid courses, but maybe spend the time, do a wilderness first aid course, and that'll even give you extra confidence to get out there. In terms of getting a hold of me, yeah, you can find, I've got kind of two websites right now. I've got my ShawnStratton.com, and that's where you can find my book, Teams on the Edge, and all my consulting information for corporate team building and leadership training. And my newest initiative, the Home Office Dad Club and the Home Office Dad Podcast. So you can find that at homeofficedadclub.com. The Home Office Dad Podcast is live on iTunes right now.
Well, awesome, Shawn. Thank you so much again for being here. I've really enjoyed our conversation and just kind of sharing your story about your life in the outdoors and what that means to you, and how people who are just kind of getting started and realizing that in order to grow their business, in order to change their life, how the outdoors can have an impact in that change. So I appreciate you sharing that story. So thanks again for being here, Shawn.
Yeah, you're most welcome. I really appreciate your podcast and your topic. I think it's fantastic and hope it inspires more people to get outside.
That's it for today's episode of S'more Outdoor. I'm just so excited to be here with you today to share the stories and outdoor experiences from people like Shawn. So a few things before I go. You can head on over to s'moreoutdoor.com to see the recap of Shawn's show on his show notes page, along with ways that you can connect with him. Just type Shawn in the search bar. That's SHAWN. If you enjoyed this episode as much as I did, we would love it if you would leave a comment on his page where Shawn and I will respond. To stay updated with new episodes, make sure you subscribe to the podcast by either clicking subscribe in iTunes, the subscribe button on Shawn's show notes page, or from the app on your phone. If you would leave a comment and rating for the show in iTunes, that would be awesome. This helps to get the show noticed so others like you and I can learn about how the nature effect can have an impact in their lives and become inspired by these stories. Also, like us on Facebook at facebook.com/s'moreoutdoor and follow us on Twitter. The username is @BATROUT, BATRAUDT. And make sure you sign up at S'more Outdoor. That way you won't miss out on exclusive content I send out. So I hope Shawn's story has inspired you to reconnect with nature and start living with childlike wonder again. Thank you for tuning in to the show that's changing lives around the world. Until next time, I challenge you to do something this week to get S'more Outdoor.